boss. I know they won't mess with him. Okay, are we ready? You guys ready out there? We're so grateful to have all of our channels here, 19, 5, 3, 8, and all of you who are here today. Thank you very much. Feel free to move around, whatever you need to do to make this work on the behalf. It's a very important issue that we're going to be talking about today. So what we'll do is, just so you know the format, we're going to have a couple of folks speaking, and then afterwards, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask us as many questions as you want about what we're going to talk about even today. Are we ready? Amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Hello, I'm the Reverend Dr. Larry Macon. I'm the pastor of the Mount Zion Church, also the president of United Pastors in Mission, and we welcome you here today. Greater Cleveland United Pastors in Mission and other clergy organizations are here to speak out about the city's deadly wave of violence here in Greater Cleveland. The city of Cleveland is becoming one of the most violent cities in America. Only a few weekends ago, more than 24 people were shot and 4 killed in one weekend in Cleveland. And we are constantly experiencing this violent city. For us, there are too many guns on the street. There are too many people with criminal records also on the street. And there is a shortage of values about what is right and what is wrong, what is acceptable and what should be condoned, and what is condemned. Violence for us is at an epidemic level like COVID-19 has been in our city. And we must call on our local, state, and national leaders to call it, if you will, a national health crisis when it comes down to this thing called violence. It is not only killing people, it is destroying families, it's destroying churches, it's destroying mosques, it's destroying synagogues, it's destroying restaurants, and it's destroying organizations in and around the city. And we must declare and call it what it is, a disease that has to be rid of, dealt with, and ultimately eliminated. And so we're here to suggest of what we believe needs to happen, and we're going to talk about that today. It's going to take all of us and more of us. It's not a one-man department problem. It's not just about our police department, and they're doing all that they can. It's not just about what our mayor is doing and saying. It takes more than even him. It takes more than the city council to come together. It takes all of us to deal with this problem. It takes the entire government officials, all of the officials, all of those from the White House to the State House, to the local house, even to our houses, our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, and our religious organization. It takes all of us to give creative ways to deal with the problem of violence and gun violence on our street and what we used to call our neighborhoods.
Yes, yes, sir, Bishop.
Then secondly, in the meantime, we're asking that there be a massive campaign to help citizens and organizations to understand and develop warning signs that might indicate tendencies towards a problem here in violence. Mental health is important, but we're not sure if all the violence is caused by folk who are having mental health struggles. Sometimes it's caused from economic problems. Sometimes it's caused from social disparities. Sometimes it's caused from discrimination and other kinds of problems. Sometimes it's caused by racism. We don't know, but we know that there is a problem, and there's red flags to say that we need to deal with it as a community.
Yes.
And then there are to be some policy changes by the people. I repeat that. There needs to be some policy changes by the people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's why we believe in access to the booth, the voting booth. And we think it's important not only to have access to the voting booth, but we think people ought to vote.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we think that people ought to be encouraged to vote.
Right.
We are getting ready to challenge our political leaders and even one of the most sacred documents in this state, the Ohio State Constitution. And people must have time, and even more time, to think about the change, not quickly over summertime.
That's right.
They need time to pray about it. They need time to discuss changes in the most sacred document in this state.
Yes.
And to be very honest with you, it just has not been enough time and enough discussions to vote yes on this sacred document that needs to remain. And so today we have pastors who have come together all around Greater Cleveland to say we need to deal with the violence issue, we need to deal with the gun issue, and we need to make sure that people get out and vote on August 8th. We're going to ask the Reverend Dr. C.J. Matthew of the Mount Sinai Church, Friendship Church, and the Executive Director of the United Pastors to share with us at this time. Then Dr. Otis Moss of the Olivet Institution Church, our Senior Advisor, will share with us. And then we're going to ask that Dr. Chalker will share with us. Dr. Matthew.
Thank you, Brother President. To the assembled this morning, to our community, the words we need to hear were the words we just heard from Dr. Moss for the past 50 minutes. I believe if those words were spread across this nation, we would have some little hope.
Yes, sir.
We don't represent any speech or any rhetoric,
That's right.
but the churches have been working very, very hard, both with our county, with our city, with our federal government, and with our collective community-based organizations to bring together models, to bring resources, to begin to affect violence in a new way. We cannot sit in Eiffel Towers, give the resources to organizations unrelated to our community,
Yes, sir.
and expect change.
That's right.
If we're going to make a difference today, we've got to look for the gold in our communities. And then we've got to mine that gold and bring it forth and allow it to shine. There are thousands of people working every day to keep their family and their community and neighborhood safe. But they go unnoticed and they go under-resourced.
Yes, sir.
If we want to affect violence, we must affect poverty.
Yes, sir.
We don't want to talk about it. We must affect gerrymandering.
Talk, Reverend.
We must get no plans in the state of Ohio. We can no longer disenfranchise people
Right.
and then run the headlines of violence to take our focus away from what's really happening.
You're right, Reverend. You're right, Reverend.
If we want to affect violence, we can do it today.
Yes.
Get rid of collateral sanctions and allow people coming home from incarceration to get a job and not have to carry the weight of their criminal history for the rest of their life. If you want to affect violence, let's stop playing games.
Talk, Reverend.
And let's create a movement of inclusion. And anyone who is against inclusion, diversity, equity, any of those powerful human compassionate ideas, unfortunately, they are
I agree with Dr. Matthews. Encouraging person to proclaim those in the Christian tradition
voting rights throughout the land. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Parker, and Methodist Church will share with us also.
It's impossible not to agree with the persons that have just so eloquently spoken. I would just like to point out that I believe that if the violence were taking place in Strongsville, if the violence were taking place in Westlake, if the violence were taking place on the east side, far east side, everybody would be in far emotional outrage about what's taking place.
That's right.
Why is that the case? In the 1920s and the 1930s, for instance, white clergy were bought off. Their silence was paid for to speak out in behalf of racism and nationalism. That same force is buying off silence among white folk today, particularly among a portion of the church. And it is a crisis that we must also address, because indeed we are called to be brothers and sisters and recognize that injustice against one person affects us all.
Christine Smith will come now and share with us from the Restoration Ministry.
Amen.
To God be the glory. We are standing in agreement with all of those who have spoken before, but I am coming specifically to say vote no on issue 1. Vote no because it is trying to force us into a situation like the U.S. Senate currently is in, with this crazy level of having a filibuster vote level of 60. Going from 50 plus 1, which is the regular majority, taking it to a super high level to make it impossible for us to deal with these issues that all of these gentlemen have just spoken about. We will not be able to get the NRA in check. We will not be able to have equity and inclusion and diversity and common sense legislation passed if those who are in charge have raised the threshold. We are already struggling to get people to come out and vote. If we have this threshold raised to 60% before we can change any type of constitutional amendment, we will not be able to roll back the travesties that shall occur. So vote no on issue 1. Thank you.